When it's time to sell your home, start with a visit to howardhanna.com. Ranked the #1 real estate site for sellers. We can get you the most money in the quickest amount of time because we know where the local buyers are and how to reach them. Get started today at howardhanna.com.
Avoiding care can lead to worse problems. Don't delay care. We're here for you.
Hey everyone, welcome in Western New York Athletics. You're watching our pregame show of the Class A Far West regional game between Jamestown and Canandaigua, sponsored by Logistics Plus. I'm Francis Beck, joined by Tim Chifa, Joe Daniel, as we get ready for this Class A game. The Jamestown Red Raiders, Canandaigua, both undefeated on a collision course right now in Jamestown in that Far West regional game. Guys, what are you looking forward to most from this game?
Well, I think we have, very similar to the first game. If you look at on paper, you have very evenly matched teams. And we said that about the Randolph Oakfield game. We don't get a chance to see the Section 5 schools too often, obviously. So we get some highlights and we read what we can and then we see. But the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. You have points per game, which is, almost the exact same. Points per game, 39-35 in the edge of Canandaigua. Points against, 13-12. Both teams 11-0. Passing yards, a little bit on the edge of Canandaigua, rushing and Jamestown. I think we're in for a shootout, Joe. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Well, we thought that in the first game.
We were on the first half.
The first half we were. Yes, we were on that collision course, right? And then you talk about the first game, guys, how close it was, just, 2-3 plays. And I expect the same here in this game. 2-3 plays.
That's a good reminder. Oakfield, Alabama, Alba did beat Randolph 28-22 in the Class D game for those of you just tuning in, but not to cut you off.
Well, it was a good segue, right? So 2-3 plays made a difference in that game. I kind of expect that tonight in the Jamestown game. I mean, Jamestown was very impressive versus Frontier. Yes, Frontier was missing their quarterback. Jamestown's at home. How is the pressure going to be? They were so close last year to winning their Section 6 championship. Now they did this year. How are they going to come out at home?
And lost on this field.
So just because you're home doesn't mean anything, and the pressure's on them tonight. We talk about the points. Both teams have good defenses here. So, yes, are both teams getting in the 30s? I don't think so. It came close. I bet you have a game that both teams scores in the 20, and it's going to be a tight one.
Yeah, Canandaigua comes in ranked number 3 in the state, Francis. Jamestown number 2. So both teams obviously kind of expected to be here for the most part. But Francis, I think we are in, two what seems like really good quarterbacks. I've seen Drake play several times. We talked about last week when we were at the stadium that he may not have the stats this year. That's obviously, because you have Batera who runs the ball and scores a touchdown every time he touches the ball. But I'm telling you, I seen Drake play in person a few times, and I don't think there's any doubt he is a top 5 quarterback in Western New York. We haven't seen Canandaigua play a lot. Like I said, we saw some stats and we saw some highlights, but it's very obvious they are led by their senior quarterback, Brian Boldrin, just under 1,600 yards passing, 20 touchdowns. So I'm looking forward to a quarterback, shootout tonight. And, how can we not talk about, Jalen Batera, who arguably is the best offensive player in Western New York.
I think at this point, he's probably, he was named a finalist for the award. I think he's the favorite right now for the Connolly Cup.
You would think he's probably the favorite, especially if they keep winning too. But yeah, and Jalen Batera he's a special player, and we talked about Jamestown, just being a special team, at the stadium too. They played Frontier, who you're a little biased. You wanted Frontier to win, but
I was a little wrong.
But just sometimes you run into a very special team.
Yeah.
And I think from all looks at we have 2 teams like that today, and it could come down to very little things. penalties,
Mhm.
who has their composure, coaching, who's going to make the right adjustments. It could come down to the very little things that you kind of take for granted in football games sometimes.
So Butera's great, and he's going to get his yards. He's probably going to score a couple touchdowns. Interesting player from Canandaigua. So they have Jackson Grant. He's a senior receiver linebacker, 25 catches, 566 yards. Those stats may not seem crazy, guys, but it continues. 7 receiving touchdowns. He's also got 14 carries for 186, okay? He's also thrown the ball 4 for 4, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I guarantee you Jackson Grant is going to make a mark in this game.
I was talking to Frank Wolf earlier this morning, and he believes, obviously Butera is going to have a great game, but he thinks they're going to need a big game from a few other guys, including a Ben Anderson, who has been their guy up the middle.
He's a big Ben Anderson guy.
Yeah.
Frank loves Ben Anderson. He talks about him all the time, and deservingly so, though, too. I mean, he is kind of the unsung hero, I guess you could say, of Jamestown. Great stats. I mean, Ben Anderson rushing the ball. He's got 591 yards, 6 touchdowns, but defensively, he's the heart and soul of their defense. I mean, he is all over the place on defense. And Frank loves him for all the right reasons. The kid's a great football player.
And you guys say about defense, how he's all over the place. 135 tackles. Those are London Fletcher numbers. How about that?
Right.
There's a name drop. 31 tackles for loss. That's incredible. So he's getting to the backfield, beating the offensive line,
and he's doing it again.
9 sacks.
Yeah, and he's doing it against some big backs. We talk about Frontier. We talk about Will South and that offense. These aren't easy guys to bring down either. Hamburg, yeah, as well with that rushing attack. And for those of you watching, I know somebody's asking how to watch the game. We usually do broadcast the Jamestown games because this is a state tournament game. This will be broadcasted on the NFHS network. There's a subscription for it. If you haven't seen the link yet, I know we have it on our Facebook page, but I think after this, I can throw in the link if you are still couldn't find that link and want to tune in to that game. But we'll have halftime coverage and postgame coverage as well. Last point here before we wrap it up, and I believe the game's going to start in just a few moments. We saw a Randolph team who was used to running the table, and they got kind of punched in the mouth. And we thought at first in that end of that first half, it seemed like they came back, but that second half, I think they struggled with dealing with adversity. So I think as a Jamestown coach, Tom Langworthy, who probably saw some of that, what do you think his message is to his players about handling potential adversity for the first time this season?
Well, I think a little bit goes to what Joe said earlier. How you're going to handle the pressure, especially you do have a home game, which is a very unique situation. So the majority of the fans are going to be there. But I think Jamestown, you just got to play your game. Okay, you got to play your game. You can't change anything. I think we got to ask Francis last weekend. What would you change because you're here? Nothing, right? Nothing. I mean, I think you might make adjustments, as you go. But if you're Jamestown, you are going to feed Butera. You're going to feed Drake. You're going to feed your go-to guys, and you're going to make them stop what you've done all season.
Yeah, and I think if you're Jamestown, believe it or not, you're having this conversation all year. You're saying, guys, listen, eventually someone's going to play us tough. It's going to be a tight game. We got to be ready for that. My flag football team had a great year. We won a lot of games by 2-3 scores, but every week I tell them we're going to have an off game. Someone's going to be like really great, and we're going to have to face some tough moments. How are you going to respond? You get ready for it by building up to this, and we'll see if Jamestown's ready. I mean, this is going to be a good game, and I'm excited to watch it tonight.
You know what? You mentioned tough opponents. I just remembered they don't Class A. They didn't have a whole ton of non-league schedule, but they did schedule Orchard Park Week 1, who was a very good team in AA. They made it to the semifinals. That was a pretty close game that the Red Raiders pulled out. So I'm sure maybe in a couple hours they'll be very glad they scheduled that game and did have that adversity. So kickoff should be in just a few moments. It will be on the NFHS network. I'm going to drop a link just after we wrap up for those who are looking forward for that game. There is a subscription, unfortunately, out of our hands, though, as well. But it will be our guys on the call for that game. But for Joe Daniel, Tim Chifa. I'm Francis Beck. You're watching the Class A pregame show for the Football Far West Regionals presented by Logistics Plus. Join us back here at halftime for a recap of the first half.
When it's time to sell your home, start with a visit to howardhanna.com, ranked the #1 real estate site for sellers. A few clicks will show you the sales price you can expect for your home. We can get you the most money in the quickest amount of time because we know where the local buyers are and how to reach them. So if it's time to sell your home, visit howardhanna.com today, and we'll match you with a local Howard Hanna agent to sell your home fast.
I love being home.
Avoiding care can lead to worse problems. Don't delay care. We're here for you. Western New York Immediate Care provides quick, quality care for non-emergent injuries and illnesses. Go to WNYimmediatecare.com for more information.